Hi, third grade. I hope you enjoyed reading the Book of Three. I simply cannot believe that we actually finished this book. It has so many adventurous events happening in every chapter, and I truly enjoyed reading this book. How about you guys? Did you like this book? Perfect. So, to understand this book better, we're going to fill out our story chart. And today we're only going to focus on setting, character, plot, and conflict. And tomorrow we'll go ahead and break it into different elements in the story chart. So, let's begin with our setting. So, now when I ask you the setting of the story, what does that mean? I'm asking for the definition of the setting. So the definition of a setting is a time or place that's taking in the story, right? So what was the place and what was the time that's happening in the story? So let's go ahead and look at the place first. Let's go ahead and write place. And let's look at our map. This book was really nice because it gives you the map so you can follow along while reading. So as you can see, the whole land is taking place in a region called Prydain. So the whole thing is the land of Prydain. And now that region is broken into different kingdoms. So we have Cal Dalvin, and we have Spiral Castle, and Meadowinds Valley, and we have Cal Dathel, and we also have the kingdom of Anuvin. So the overall big setting was Prydain, and you can see it's broken down into different kingdoms. So for the bigger picture, let's go ahead and write Prydain as our setting. Prydain. And we can write this is a land broken into many small kingdoms. A land broken into many small kingdoms. So that's our bigger setting. Now, who remembers in the first chapter, where is it taking place in? So the very first chapter, where is this taking place in? We're looking for where Taran lived, right? And that place is called Kyle Dalbin. So as you can see in the map, the story begins in Kyle Dalbin. So let's go ahead and write that down. Kyle Dalbin. And this is where Taran lives. So in chapter 1, they're talking about just Taran's life in Cal Dalbin, right? How would you say the story started? What was the vibe, the mood that was taking place in chapter 1? As you can read, I mean, it sounds peaceful, doesn't it? And almost boring because Taran is tired of making the horseshoes and taking care of gardens, and he was just tired of his peaceful and relaxed life. So that was the mood of our chapter 1. But at the end of our chapter 1, the mood starts to change suddenly. Do you guys remember? In this paragraph, Taran followed. Ahead, the forest rose up dark and threatening. He took a breath and plunged after her. So towards the end of the first chapter, we see the mood suddenly changing from being peaceful to threatening. Because Taran sees the Horn King in chapter 2, right? So you can see the mood change and the setting suddenly change from happy to scary. Now, which one of you remembers the time that this book takes place? What was the time? Was it, I'm looking for seasons specifically. Was it spring? Was it summer? Was it fall or winter? What do you guys think? And as you can read in, where is it? Oh, in this paragraph, I'll read it to you. The spring scent of apple blossom drifted through the open window. Beyond Dobbin's chamber, Taran glimpsed the pale green fringe of forest. The fields ready to cultivate would soon turn gold with summer. So in that paragraph, you can see the time. What was the time in chapter 1? It started as spring, you're right. And what's going to happen after? Soon they said it's time to cultivate, right? So the things will change golden when summer comes. So we can say spring turning to summer. And you could see green forest, all the trees are blooming, flowers blooming. So you know that it's happening in spring turning to summer. So that was our setting. Now let's take a look at our character. What is a character? When I ask, what was the character of the book? What does that mean? It means we're looking for the main people happening or main people in the story. So let's start with our main character, protagonist. Who is the main character of this book? If you were to narrow it down to one protagonist, who is the most important figure? Everyone, it is Taran. Of course. We have Taran, who is our protagonist. Now, how would you describe Taran? What are some adjectives you can use for Taran's personality? We can say Taran is brave, of course. Yeah, Taran was brave. He wanted to be hero, right? He was ready to take the adventures when it was coming his way. He was brave, but yet he was immature. Of course, he was not ready. He was not ready to fight. He was immature. He was still a kid, it said. Anything else? He was brave yet immature. What else can you say about Taran? Would you say Taran was a good friend? Would you say he was a good servant to Gwydion? I would say so. He wanted to carry on the task that Gwydion couldn't carry on, right? So I would say he was very loyal to his goal and his Gwydion friend, right? And remember how Taran wanted to become the leader and then he tried to kind of boss around his companions. Remember that? By looking at that, how would you say Taran is? Wouldn't you say Taran is a little cocky? I would say Taran is a little cocky because he thought only he could lead the group and only he could defeat the Horn King. So he was a little bit cocky as well. But towards the end of the book, third grade, if you remember, Taran told Dobbin that he actually made a lot of mistakes. All he did was making mistakes. So to me, I think Taran is really honest. He is honest to his feeling, and he is quick to admit his mistakes, right? So you can see Taran kind of growing up as being a little selfish, immature kid to a honest and really honest and loyal and kind friends later in the chapter. So I would say that's Taran. But Taran is not the only one who is leading the story, right? We have also, who's the next important one? We're still doing the protagonists, the nice people. We have Gwydion. Good. Gwydion. And what can you tell me about Gwydion? Who is Gwydion? Gwydion is the true hero. Yeah, he is the hero. He's the one who fights the Horned King and saves the land of Prydain, right? So he is the true hero that Taran desired to be. Taran always wanted to be like Gwydion. So he's the true hero. Who else did we have? Who are Taran's companions that we have to remember? We have Ailoni, who was the enchantress. Remember, she was practicing to be the enchantress. And how would you describe Ailoni? I mean, I really liked her. How would you describe Ailoni's personality? Wouldn't you say she was a little opposite of Taran? Yes, Ailoni is a girl, and she was also little. But I think Ailoni was a very bold character. She was not afraid to tell her opinions. She was not afraid to call Taran out when he made a mistake. Ailoni was a very bold and brave girl. And would you say Ailoni had more experiences than Taran? I would say so. I would say that she was more knowledgeable than Taran for sure. I mean, she had to learn from Akron, right? So she was definitely more knowledgeable than Taran. And we also have Fluter. Now, he's a funny character, wouldn't you say? Who was Fluter? Fluter was a bard. But it turned out he was actually a king of a small kingdom. But he decided to become a bard. Now, what was so special about Fluter? Remember what happened to his harps? What happened to Fluter's harp? The strings, they pop when Fluter lies, right? I thought Fluter was really funny. I mean, he tried to be brave, but not always. Right? Sometimes he was scared, but he was not true to his feelings. He tried to make himself look like a hero, but he really wasn't. And we also have Gurgi, Henwen, and other characters that were part of this book. Now let's take a look at our antagonist. Now, who is against Taran and his companions, the main one? The Horned King, of course. The Horned King is the ultimate enemy of Taran, especially Gwydion, because Gwydion and Horned King had to fight each other to decide who's gonna rule the Prydain, right? So the Horned King and also who? We have Aran, of course. And Aran had the army of the Cauldron Born and also the Fluter, not Fluter, also the Gwithins, right? The bird. So Aran and last one, Ailoni's And it was Akron. Akron. Now, she was a beautiful, beautiful queen, the enchantress, right? But she was also as evil as she was beautiful. So those three were the main antagonists. Now, what do you think the antagonists were trying to get from the protagonist? What was their goal? What would you say Iran's goal was? Why was he evil? Now, the antagonists were using their evil power to rule over the Prydain in a bad way, right? And now protagonists are trying to battle them so that they can save the land of Prydain. That's what was happening. Beautiful. Now let's go to a plot. Now, plot is how we can summarize the whole book in one or two sentences, right? Overall story of what is happening in the book. So if you were to describe this book to someone who has never read this book, what are some main things that you want to talk about? Now, for example, what does Tehran want? What does Tehran, or what do Tehran and his companions want to achieve in this book? What is their purpose? Yeah, Tehran and his friends are trying to go to Kaldathel to what? What's the reason for them to reach to Kaldathel? To warn the people about the Horned Kings. Yeah, exactly. That is exactly right. So we can write the story is about Tehran. But how did Tehran even go to the forest to begin with? How did the story even start? Because Henwen escaped. Tehran was the assistant peacekeeper and he wanted to find Henwen. That's why he first went to the forest, right? So stories about Tehran trying to, and this keeps coming up in the book, trying to find Henwen. Right, so that's what happens in the beginning. So Tehran tries to find Henwen and warns the Sons of Dawn Sons of Dawn about who? About the Horned King. Now in this sentence, the story is about Tehran trying to find Henwen and warns the Sons of Dawn about the Horned King. In this sentence, now I am able to explain the main story of the book without revealing any secrets, right? I mean, it's about a boy who's trying to find the pig and tries to go to Kaldathel to warn them about the Horned King, who is the antagonist. So I'm not ruining anything. Not a spoiler alert, but I'm just giving a summary of the book. Now let's go to a conflict. Now conflict is the problem in the story, right? Now why can Tehran, again, Tehran's goal is to go to Kaldathel to warn people of the Horned King. But why can he have it? Why can he not achieve this? Because, yeah, we have man versus man. The main reason, guys, why Tehran cannot just go to Kaldata, why it has to take this 20 chapters to go to Kaldata is because we have Tehran fighting who? The Horned King and his army. Tehran fighting the Horned King and his armies. I mean, if Tehran was not being chased by the Horned King and the Cauldron Born and the Great Danes, Tehran could have just gone straight to Kaldatho. But we have a problem, conflict. Because they're chasing, Tehran has to face them, and it takes a long time. Right? But is that the only conflict? Is man versus man the only conflict? No, because we have man versus himself. Man versus himself. Now, because Tehran is our main protagonist, we're going to focus on Tehran's emotion. So in what way would you say Tehran is battling his internal self? Tehran here is trying to figure out what a hero truly is. Right? At first, he thought being a hero means he's not afraid to fight, he's wearing fancy clothes, he has to have weapons. But later, he gets confused because he's thinking, then what is truly being a hero? Right? So he is battling his inner thoughts. And he's trying to figure out what's evil and what's good. So that's why it's man versus himself. All right? So go ahead and write this down. In third grade, if you need to pause your video to have time to write, go ahead and do so. Okay? See you tomorrow.